Nothing is more recognizable when it comes to vehicles in the James Bond series than the Aston Martin DB5, which can be seen in older films like Goldfinger or the most recent Bond film, No Time to Die. It has Gatling weapons concealed under the headlights and is sophisticated and fashionable. It has everything you could possibly need in a spy automobile. Everyone enjoys a sporty BMW, right? But how has a recognizable M suffix influenced the worth of these widely disparate Teutonic products? Burkhard Göschel served as the project's director, and it started in 1991. The goal was for BMW to create something that could compete in the crowded two-seater roadster market where the Mazda MX-5 unquestionably reigned supreme. BMW intended to give something more substantial and opulent while still providing the renowned BMW handling, although it wasn't directly competing with Mazda. Because of this, the Z3 was built using the semi-trailing arm suspension designs from the E33 series and the floor plan of the wildly popular E36 3 series. This was selected due to a number of factors, including price, packaging, and weight. BMW produced the two-seat Z3 sports car from 1995 until 2002. The Z3 comes in two different configurations, a coupe with a traditional roof and a roadster with a retractable top. The Z3 is well renowned for being enjoyable to drive thanks to its compact, lightweight chassis and strong engine. At first, the Z3's resale value declined quickly after purchase, but because it was cancelled, the Z3 has grown more popular over time. Since then, it has increased in value greatly. As a result, according to Auto Padre, the value of the 2002 BMW Z3s will rise by about 10% every 5 years. Which movie of James Bond discussed BMW Z3? James Bond, played by Pierce Brosnan, was a covert agent in the 1995 film GoldenEye. In the film, Bond's friend Q shows him his customized vehicle, in this instance a BMW Z3. It has a variety of spy tools such as missiles, radar, a parachute, and a self-destruct mechanism. Only briefly does the BMW appear in the film, and GoldenEye is better known now for being a terrific Nintendo 64 game, but the DB5 is quite exquisite. The actual car in the movies would cost almost $2 million to buy, according to CNBC. Most Bond fans will be surprised by the cost of practically every Aston Martin. However, the more thrifty movie fan does not necessarily have to give up their fantasy of owning a Bond car. Why does Z3 qualify as a Bond car? The Z3 does qualify as a Bond automobile, although one with little screen time and an affordable one at that. A 1996 BMW Z3 can be purchased for just over $13,000, according to Car Guru's pricing data. Stinger missiles and self-destructing Z3s are not included in this price, but it's safe to say that those changes would raise the cost overall, not to mention breaking several local, national, and international laws governing weaponry. Even without radar and parachute, a BMW Z3 is still reasonably priced. The BMW Z3 provided the kind of luxury and construction quality one would anticipate from a BMW. Even now, Z3s with arduous lifetimes and hundreds of thousands of kilometers on them still feel sturdy and well assembled. Despite the Z3's striking, stunning appearance, it received a cool response. Launch vehicles with the 16V 4-cylinder 136 bhp engine were simply insufficient. The MX-5 and SLK were far superior options. Additionally, BMW awkwardly inserted the Z3 inside GoldenEye. It had the potential to be a bombastic, daring movement for the Z3, but lacked the characteristic Bond vehicle jazz. Even if a 26-year-old BMW is neither as elegant nor as quick as a DB9 or an Aston Martin DB5, it does look a little bit better than the AMC Hornet that Bond drove in the 1974 James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun. To dress the role of 007, you don't need a license to kill or to spend a fortune. The E36x7 M Roadster and 36x8 M Coupe, which are arguably two of BMW M's most talented products, had a lot going for them, not the least of which was the fact that they were initially powered by the 316 bhp S50 engine from the M3 Evo, with power later increased with the arrival of the 321 bhp S54 from the E46 in 2001. Only 1,112 of the latter in coupe form were produced, making them the rarest. In 1998, the list price of both tin and soft-top models was £40,595, but oddly, by the time the more potent S53 model debuted in 2001, it had decreased to £36,000. This inevitably upset the market in those early years because new M Coupes and Roadsters were going for far less than consumers were asking for them to sell their used R and S-Plate cars. The introduction of the more attractive and structurally strong Z4 Roadster in 2002, followed by the coupe in 2006, dealt residual yet another serious blow. In fact, by 2010, the Z3 M Roadster price had dropped to £7,000, but the substantially superior coupe still commanded a $1,000 premium despite its very divisive appearance. Then, in the early 2010s, the value of coupes skyrocketed to much over £10,000. Since then, prices of both versions have slowly increased. Now, a good Roadster will cost you £15,000, while the coupe will still cost you a little more. Late coupes with the S54 engine do indeed regularly sell for £30,000, with low-mileage specimens fetching much higher prices. The benefit of hindsight is that it demonstrates the necessity of acting quickly to seize a bargain when it presents itself. Although other sometimes neglected firsts for BMW include its aluminum front suspension components and its then novel multi-link arrangement at the back, this M5 made headlines for being the first to use a V8 engine. The first ones squealed out of those posh, dimly lit showrooms in 1999 with a production run of 20,482 and a list price of an eye-watering £63,210. The problem is that although being incredibly fast and doing so with ease sounded fantastic and driving superbly, it never really looked special enough. And as a result, early depreciation was horrendous. It didn't help that the majority of them turned into wallet-busting money pits after a few years when the Vanos units, catalytic converters, gearboxes, and just about everything else started to go wrong, which explains why a clean one would be purchased for under £5,000 in 2012. Given that the typical fee for those who have so far survived is £15,000, it's still a bit of a bargain for those keen to experience one last hurrah in a super-fast luxury V8. Although some may be marketed for much more, there isn't enough demand to justify spending more than this. It's still a complicated car if something goes wrong. And with an average fuel economy of barely 17 miles per gallon, it's doubtful that it will ever be worth more. When an example has low enough mileage and desirable options such as the Heritage Leather option, it occasionally manages to get £20,000. The M3 was distinct from the conventional E30 in almost every way, including its chiseled, bulging arches, heavily sloped rear screen, Revy 16V, 2302cc, S14 engine, 5-stud wheels, and plastic bottle. And because of this, even though the steering wheel was in the improper position, BMW retailers in this area felt justified to ask $23,550 for one. Only 788 of the merger 17,970 units of the first ever M built by BMW's own motorsport division were convertibles. Due to its initial obscurity, few individuals outside of enthusiast groups were familiar with it. In fact, an M3 is above average condition had dropped to £6,355 by the summer of 2000, while the absolute lowest price was £2,630, according to a dog-eared pricing guide in the office. Of course, boy racers on a budget were already accessorizing insurance-friendly E30s at this point, and the allure of the smooth 6-cylinder 323i and 325i models would have been powerful enough to convince many people to overlook the more expensive 4-pot rarity. But then something very important happened. It was rediscovered by the motoring press, who then began praising its racing heritage. Due to this, prices started to soar, and a decade later, decent M3s were selling for £20,000, with the more expensive Sport Evolution fetching prices of £60,000 to £70,000. Strangely, the convertible always cost less. Currently, well-detailed regular automobiles cost between £40,000 and £50,000, while special models like the Evo, Sport Evo, Revaglia, and Sekoto can easily cost more than $100,000. Is BMW Z3 reliable? Due to a lack of information, RepairPal is unable to provide an accurate dependability score for the Z3. However, they can tell us that a Z3 has somewhat higher than average annual repair expenditures. BMW's total RepairPal rating is 2.5 out of 5, meaning its track record for dependability isn't particularly stellar. This indicates that BMW vehicles frequently experience unplanned mechanic visits, and these trips are more likely to be serious. However, owners who examine the BMW Z3 claim that as long as its parts are routinely inspected and worn-out pieces are changed, the BMW is a delight to own. Many Z3 owners are auto enthusiasts, thus they would be aware of how to take care of a sports car. In general, owners don't report any serious problems with the Z3, which is excellent news if you're thinking about purchasing a used one.